You know all those AI models we use every single day? Well, what if I told you there's something weird going on deep inside them? A kind of strange, hidden behavior, almost like a ghost in the machine, that's affecting pretty much every major AI out there. So let's pull back the curtain and see what's really going on.
Yeah, think about it like this. What if these incredibly powerful systems, from ChatGPT to Midjourney, all share a secret, nervous tick? It's this tiny, repetitive glitch, but it's one with absolutely huge consequences for how these AIs actually think and create.
And here it is. This is what that tick actually looks like. What you're seeing is an attention heat map from a large language model. See that super bright red bar over on the left? That's the AI, well, it's obsessively focusing its attention on the very first thing it sees, over and over and over again. It doesn't matter what you ask it. And this weird phenomenon, they call it an attention sink.
Okay, so what's the official definition? Well, an attention sink is what happens when an AI, one built on what they call a transformer model, it just gets stuck. It ends up pouring a ton of its focus, its attention, onto just a few, often totally useless little pieces of data called tokens. And that token could be anything, really. The first word of a sentence, a comma, maybe even just a blank spot in a picture.
Right about now, you're probably thinking, okay, so what? It's just a little glitch, right? Well, not exactly. This is way more than just a harmless quirk. See, this tick makes it super hard for us to figure out how the AI is even making its decisions. It can slow everything down, make the AI start spitting out nonsense, what we call hallucinations, and at the end of the day, it just makes the whole system a lot less stable and reliable.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The story of how researchers are trying to deal with this ghost, it's pretty fascinating. Their whole strategy has evolved over time, through 3 really distinct phases, as they've learned more and more about what's going on.
So at first, their approach was super practical. They found this glitch, and their first thought wasn't, let's get rid of it. Nope. It was, how can we work with this thing? Or, maybe even use it to our advantage.
Of course, just working around a problem will only get you so far. So the next phase was all about putting on their detective hats. They had to dig deep into the AI's code to figure out the big question, why? Why was this even happening in the first place?
And that leads us right up to today. Now that they have a much better understanding, the focus has completely shifted to engineering a fix. The goal now is to literally design this flaw right out of the system and, in the process, build a much better, stronger AI.
All right, let's dive into part 1, the pragmatists. How on earth did they learn to live with this ghost in the machine?
So it turns out this little glitch actually had a weird silver lining. Get this. When researchers were trying to get AIs to handle really long texts or conversations, they discovered that if they tried to remove these attention sink spots, the whole model would just break. So they did the exact opposite. They decided to keep them, realizing these sinks were acting like some kind of anchor, giving the system this strange stability. It's a classic engineering move, right? They turned a bug into a feature.
Which, of course, brings us back to that huge question. Why does this even happen? And this is where the detective work really paid off, as they uncovered the cause buried deep inside the AI's own math.
Okay, so the main culprit is this mathematical function called softmax. Now, its whole job is to spread out the AI's attention, but it has one really strict rule. All of the attention, 100% of it, has to be assigned somewhere. It can't just go nowhere. So imagine the AI is looking at some text, and there's nothing really important to focus on in that moment. Well, it can't just pay attention to nothing. It's forced to dump that leftover attention somewhere, and it ends up picking a safe default spot. And that spot, that becomes the attention sink.
Here's a simple way to think about it. When the AI is confident and it knows what to do, its attention goes right to the important words. It's focused. But when it's uncertain, or if nothing really stands out as relevant, that attention still has to go somewhere. It can't just disappear. So it defaults to the sink, that first word or that comma, and uses it as a kind of computational dumping ground.
Okay, so once they figured out the why, the final phase could really begin. Engineering an actual solution. The big question became, how do we build an AI that doesn't need to lean on this weird crutch?
And today, engineers are coming at this from a few different angles. One idea is to add these things called gates that basically control the flow of attention, telling the AI, hey, it's okay to ignore stuff sometimes. Another approach is to go right for the root cause and actually change the softmax math itself, getting rid of that rule that forces it to pay attention. And then there's a third pretty clever idea. Just create a purpose-built sink, like a special component that's designed specifically to soak up all that extra attention so it doesn't cause any other problems.
And believe me, this isn't just some niche thing a few academics are looking at. I mean, look at this chart. The research on this problem is absolutely exploding. You can literally see the story we've been talking about. The early stuff, there in red, that was all about utilization, just working with the sync. Then you see the green section pop up, interpretation, where they figured out why. And now look at the purple, the fastest growing area by far. That's strategic mitigation. That's the engineering work to finally fix it.
So we've followed this whole story, this hunt for a weird little ghost inside the AI. But what's the big takeaway? Why does tracking down this one tiny glitch actually matter for the future of AI?
When you step back, you see this whole journey follows a really classic pattern, right? First came utilization, where we just used the quirk to get by. Then came interpretation, where we finally understood the source. And now we're in the mitigation phase, where the goal is to get rid of the flaw and build a stronger AI. You know, this progression from just accepting a bug to understanding it and then finally fixing it, that's really the sign of any technology starting to grow up.
And at the end of the day, fixing this attention sync thing, it's not just about cleaning up some code. It's about building AIs that we can actually trust. You know, models that can process huge amounts of information without getting lost, that are way less likely to make stuff up, and that are just fundamentally safer. Getting rid of this one ghost is a really, really big step towards creating that next generation of AI.
Which leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending thought. We managed to find this one ghost in the machine. We figured it out, and we're starting to fix it. But as these AI systems get more and more complex, you just have to wonder, right? What other ghosts are still hiding in there, just waiting for us to find them?